Justice Fish offered 107 recommendations, wide scope recommendations, the majority of which supported the modernization of the military justice system, as well as recommendations that sought to strengthen the independence of the military police. Other recommendations with regards to grievances. Bill C11 also follows up on a number of these recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Alors, je remercie le député, l'honorable député. On passe aux déclarations de...
I thank the honourable member. Statements by members.
For Guelph.
Today, Mr. Speaker, the city of Guelph marks its 199th anniversary. Nearly 2 centuries, shaped by people who care deeply about learning, community, place, and one another. Wow. Situated on Treaty 3 lands, held by the Mississaugas of the Credit, home to the Haudenosaunee and the Attawandarog, Guelph brings together nature and ideas from the University of Guelph Arboretum to the Speed and Aramosa Rivers to a historic downtown rich in arts, culture, and local business. Its contributions to the arts, culture, science, innovation, and business resonate nationally and globally. As Guelph approaches its bicentennial, I invite you and all Canadians to gather in Guelph to celebrate a city that values words and imagination, home to celebrated authors, birthplace of Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, author of In Flanders Fields, birthplace of 2 Nobel laureates. Guelph is a cornerstone of Ontario agriculture and a leader in advanced manufacturing. Welcome to gather in Guelph to celebrate this remarkable city. Happy birthday to the Royal City.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
1 month ago, I introduced the Stand on Guard Act, and yet today we still have no response from this Liberal government. Not a yes, not a no, just silence. Is silence really the best response that the Liberals can muster for victims of home invasions? Our Conservative bill is simple. If someone knowingly and unlawfully enters your home, the force that you use to defend your family should deem to be reasonable. Your home is your safe place. It's where your children sleep, and it deserves special protection under our laws. But after a decade of catch and release Liberal bail, Canadians are telling us that that sense of safety is gone, and they're asking for something simple, for the law to stand with them. And they've received silence, and silence in this moment is not neutral, it's an answer in itself. Conservatives will never stop fighting for the rights for Canadians to feel safe to defend themselves and their families.
The honourable member for Winnipeg West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, Canadians marked Earth Day, a call to action to protect the environment we all share. In my riding, that call is already being answered. At College Sturgeon Heights Collegiate, an unused plot of land is being transformed into a thriving native prairie garden, thanks to a $1,500 Go Wild grant from the World Wildlife Fund Canada. This project will restore native plants and grasses, support pollinators like bees, and help bring back monarch butterflies. These are real and tangible steps to protect local biodiversity. It is being led by the school's garden club and supported by life skills students, with plans to expand into Indigenous studies programming, including traditional medicinal plants. I want to recognize Mrs. Zinn, a dedicated teacher whose leadership turned this vision into reality. This is more than a garden. It is a living classroom, a community coming together. Proof that protecting our environment depends on action, not words. This is how we will build a sustainable future. One community, one project, one generation at a time.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 100th anniversary of the Galt Legion, a milestone that reminds us that remembrance does not happen on its own. It endures because individuals choose to carry it forward. In my community of Cambridge, Bill Albers is one of those individuals. Bill has devoted his time and energy to ensuring that important but often overlooked aspects of our wartime history are not lost. Through his work, he highlights the role of carrier pigeons and the pigeoneers who served during the First and Second World Wars, a vital form of service relied upon when other communication failed. But more than the history itself, Bill's efforts reflect a deep respect for service, sacrifice, and remembrance. Especially in the centennial year of the Galt Legion, his commitment helps connect past generations to the present, reminding our community why we honor those who served. Remembrance is strengthened by people like Bill Albers, who ensure that the stories of war continue to be shared, understood, and respected. Let us also remember that even the smallest wings carried the weight of great responsibility, saving thousands of lives.
Honorable député de Bourassa.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I rise to mark the 40th anniversary, yes, the 40th anniversary of the Centre d'Action Bénévole de Montréal-Nord. For 4 decades, the CAB has been at the heart of our neighborhood. It supports seniors, it helps newcomers settle in, it mobilizes volunteers, and builds community ties that make the riding of Bourassa stronger and more inclusive. The CAB embodies the noblest aspects of civic engagement. People who choose to get involved not because they have to, but because they want to, out of their convictions. Without these people, without these volunteers, so many cultural and sports and recreation activities could not even occur, Mr. Speaker. So, on behalf of the residents of Bourassa, I give them all my thanks, and I wish them a happy 40th anniversary. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Small businesses are the backbone of the Canadian economy, and that's truer than ever in St. Thomas, Elgin, and London. Our small businesses are an incredible testament to the resilience, grit, and innovativeness of our community. Some of our amazing entrepreneurs and professionals were recognized Friday at the St. Thomas and District Chamber of Commerce Impact Awards. I hope this House will join me in congratulating this year's Impact Award winners: real estate agent Ainsley Tracy, the Delicious Taco House, Dr. Joseph Mai from Central Community Health Centre, Our Place Respite, Element 5, Yarmouth Group, and the Business of the Year, Evelyn's Sausage Kitchen. They and all the nominees represent the best of our community. They create jobs, opportunity, and vitality for St. Thomas and Elgin. But entrepreneurs back home don't walk alone. My office is a proud member of the St. Thomas and District Chamber of Commerce. In Ottawa today from the Chamber are Maria Fialos, Paul Jenkins, and Christy Hunking. They're here representing our community and making sure small businesses can succeed, and I thank them for their efforts.
People, great job.
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, as the proud daughter of a Mexican immigrant, I rise on April 23rd to celebrate Spanish Language Day, recognized by the United Nations and 21 countries around the world. Spanish is now the most widely spoken non-official language in Canada, connecting more than 1.7 million Canadians to their heritage, identity, and traditions. 3 provinces and 14 cities have now proclaimed April 23rd as Spanish Language Day, and our Prime Minister has called this day a wonderful opportunity for Canadians of all backgrounds to learn from our Spanish-speaking communities. Communities across our country have spoken. Let us proclaim April 23rd as Spanish Language Day at the federal level.
Feliz Día de Idioma Español. Gracias, señor presidente.
The Honourable Member for Regina Luban.
On April 8th, Saskatchewan's 21st Lieutenant Governor, the Honourable Vaughan Solomon Schofield, passed away, marking an end to a life of service, strong community values, and humility. Vaughan will be remembered for her outstanding contributions to Canada's armed forces, highlighted by the numerous honours she held, including recently becoming the Honorary Colonel of 15 Wing Moose Jaw. True to her advocacy for our men and women in uniform, Vaughan established the Lieutenant Governor's Military Service Pin and hosted the Support Our Troops Gala, which was a national fundraiser for charities that assist military families. She had an unwavering and enduring bond with the people of Canada, Saskatchewan, and the Canadian Armed Forces. Vaughan's love of service is second to only one thing: her love of family. She's a devoted mother to George and Whitney. She was a loving wife to her best friend and her husband, Gord, and she truly loved her 4 grandchildren. They were the light of her life. Vaughan will be remembered for her charisma. Every room she walked into brightened with her smile and her charisma. May she rest in peace.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 50th anniversary of the Mirabel Chamber of Commerce and Industry. This is a major milestone that deserves to be celebrated. For 50 years, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry has been deeply committed to the community. Since my election in 2021, I have seen an organization that truly listens to its members, that innovates, and above all, that plays an essential role in the region's economic development. It has successfully mobilized Mirabel's strength, be it in agriculture, aerospace, or small and medium businesses, and forged strong ties between these sectors. It's no coincidence that it is nominated this year in the Recruitment and Chamber of the Year categories for organizations with 400 or fewer members. This recognition from the Fédération des Chambres de Commerce du Québec confirms the quality of their work and their very real impact. I would like to acknowledge the work of all the boards of directors that have served over the years, as well as the work of Executive Director Geneviève Bruce-Sabourin and her entire team. On behalf of the people of Mirabel, congratulations on 50 years. Mr. Speaker, allow me to raise my glass to another 50 years, at least.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, Don Valley West is home to the largest community of Shia Ismaili Muslims in Canada. This vibrant community is made up of thousands of engaged, committed Canadians who make our city and our country richer in every sense of the word. Recently, I was honoured to join His Highness the Aga Khan and members of the community to celebrate the inauguration of Generations Toronto, a new not-for-profit intergenerational community in Don Valley West, comprising 390 affordable rental homes, 122 long-term care residences, on-site health care, an early learning centre, space for prayer and community programming. This project represents the best of our efforts to build vibrant and affordable housing, a generational project for several generations to live together. This investment of $130 million through the Apartment Construction Loan Program is one example of our federal government providing affordable housing solutions for Canadians in need. We are building Canada strong.
L'honorable député de Sudbury.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury East, Manitoulin, Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, hundreds of workers in Nairn Centre and Gogama were told their sawmills will indefinitely shut down. The Liberals have been dragging their feet and have failed to secure a fair deal. Hard-working families are now left in limbo. The Prime Minister promised a trade win by last summer. Instead, softwood lumber tariffs have tripled to 45% since 2022, putting immense pressure on Canada's forestry sector. Recycled speeches and photo ops are not enough. It is time for this Liberal government to walk the talk. The alarm bells are ringing. We need results. The Liberals must stand up for our forestry sector and finally fight for the workers who keep Northern Ontario communities alive.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Monsieur le Président, je souhaite...
Mr. Speaker, today I would like to highlight Volunteer Week, which runs from April 19th to 25th, 2026. This is an opportunity to recognize the extraordinary commitment of volunteers.
Volunteers, and everyone in this room can agree, we wouldn't be standing in this house without the tireless work of the volunteer organizers who got us here. In Halifax, I'd like to give a special shout out to the dedicated volunteers who helped during the campaign, as well as those who continue to support me in this role. I'd like to also recognize the volunteer firefighters, event organizers, those who work with our food banks, in healthcare, environmental and arts organizations, and all those who dedicate themselves to strengthening our community. À tous les bénévoles partout au Canada.
To all volunteers across Canada, thank you.
Volunteer Week, and in recognition of the United Nations International Year of Volunteers, I'd like to thank all of Canada's volunteers. Your contributions make a difference in people's lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for York, Durham.
The Prime Minister was elected on the promise that he alone could handle the United States. He went further. He told Canadians, and I quote, "We will get an even better deal." So Canadians have every right to judge him by the promises that he made. made. But on top of that broken promise, we now have contradictions and confusion. This week, the Prime Minister said our relationship with the United States is a weakness, but days later said he could still get a good deal. So which is it? A rupture with the United States in favor of China, or a good deal with the United States? Canadians fear that history is repeating itself. Just like last time, the Mexicans are in advanced negotiations with dates scheduled for May. Canada, we're on the outside looking in. The Prime Minister's contradictions and confusions have led to more tariffs, higher tariffs, and broader tariffs on everything from lumber to manufactured goods. And now his absence from the negotiating table is putting in peril the millions of Canadian jobs that rely on a strong, stable relationship with the United States.
L'honorable député de Sherbrooke.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The community of Estrie is mourning the passing of Claude Métra, who passed away on April 16, 2026. A certified public accountant emeritus who spent his career at Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton in Sherbrooke, Mr. Métra was a prominent figure and a leader known for his generosity and deep love for his region. He was a true builder. He chaired numerous boards of directors and events. He was also a great patron of the arts. He prioritized regional culture, especially by organizing art openings at RCGT's offices in order to promote local artists. For his exceptional commitment, he received, among other honors, the title of Grand Estrien in 2002, the Queen's Golden Jubilee Medal, the Lieutenant Governor's Gold Medal, and La Tribune's Mérite Estrien Award. He was a devoted family man, deeply in love with his dear Marilyn, and he was also a huge lover of tennis. He leaves behind an enormous legacy. His dedication and kindness will live on forever in the memories of all those who knew him. Mr. Métra, thank you. It was a privilege to know you.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood-Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, while fuel prices are soaring, hardworking Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. We know that we cannot opt out of global factors, but we can take measures domestically to help Canadians who are hurting. After weeks of pressure, the Liberals finally caved to our demands to remove taxes at the pump during these uncertain times. Despite the half measure, this will not deliver the results Canadians need. Canadians need practical, tangible solutions, not more recycled speeches and empty promises. We need to take action, and Canadians need results. We need to build up our natural gas infrastructure and strengthen our leverage abroad while looking out for folks at home. So I call on the Liberals to remove all taxes at the pump for the rest of the year so Canadian families can keep more of their hard-earned money in their pockets.
The Honourable Member for Humber River Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize an extraordinary act of generosity that will have a lasting impact on health care in Humber River Black Creek. Recently, Humber River Health announced a transformational $50 million donation from Jay and Barbara Hennick through the Hennick Family Foundation, the largest single gift in the hospital's history. In recognition of this landmark contribution, Humber's flagship site has been renamed Hennick Humber Hospital. This historic gift will support advanced technologies, clinical programs, research, and education, ensuring that patients continue to receive safe, high-quality, and innovative care. I also wish to commend Barb Collins, the President and CEO of Humber River Health, for her visionary leadership in building one of Canada's most innovative hospitals. And of course, I thank the dedicated staff who deliver excellence every day. This is philanthropy and leadership at the very best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
With this Liberal Prime Minister, more costs, more crime, more corruption, more of the same. No illusion, it's just another Liberal. For example, he keeps 2/3 of tax on gas still, even though Canadians are paying too much at the pump. And the new carbon tax that he calls the carbon standard and GST, they cost 15 cents together per litre. Can this Prime Minister stop taxing Canadians at the pump, or is he just another Liberal? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, allow me to help my colleague, he must know that we've always been here for Canadians with measures for affordability, Mr. Speaker. Recently, you saw that we suspended the excise tax on gas, and we saw prices go down at the pump. On this side of the House, we're going to be here for Canadians when they need it, and together we're going to build Canada strong.
Leader of the Opposition.
The question was for the Prime Minister, who is in Ottawa today, but who is hiding under the table, Mr. Speaker. But I've heard everything, but I imagine that they weren't referring to the presence or the absence of a member. It was broader than that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, he may continue. The reason why the Prime Minister hates to answer real questions is because it exposes the illusion that despite the impression he wants us to have of him, he's doubled the deficit left by Justin Trudeau. He's doubled this $40 billion deficit. It's almost $80 billion now. Tax havens, all sorts of waste. This deficit's out of control. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, it's true the Leader of the Opposition was here, and days come and go, and the questions seem to be the same. And one thing is true. Mr. Speaker, I think they should be listening, Mr. Speaker, on that side of the House, because the Canadians are listening. We have the second quickest growth in the G7, and the IMF has just confirmed that Canada has the strongest fiscal position. We'll be presenting a plan for Canadians to build a Canada Strong together by the end of the month.
Position.
With this Liberal Prime Minister, it's more cost, more crime, more corruption, more of the same. That's because despite the illusions, he's just another Liberal. This is true on gas taxes, where he's keeping two-thirds, yes, they're applauding, he's just another Liberal, keeping two-thirds of the gas tax in place while Canadians get ripped off at the pump. The new carbon tax, which he calls the Clean Fuel Standard, and the GST add 15 cents a litre. Will the Prime Minister stop gouging Canadians at the pump, get rid of all taxes for all the year, or is he just another Liberal?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, more of the same. I think the leader should himself in the mirror, Mr. Speaker. Every other day is the same question, Mr. Speaker. But one thing that Canadians know, Mr. Speaker, we're always going to have their back, Mr. Speaker. When it was the time to present the grocery rebate, Mr. Speaker, they were nowhere to be seen. When it was the time to give a gas tax rebate, Mr. Speaker, he was nowhere to be seen. On this side of the House, we'll always stand with Canadians, and Tuesday we'll present a plan to build Canada strong together. That's leadership, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister hides under his desk instead of answering questions, because whether it's today when he was snarling at a female journalist for him simply asking a question, or in the House of Commons where he hides from those same questions, he knows that as soon as he faces a tough question, it exposes the thinly veiled illusion, and that the reality is that he's just another Liberal. He's doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit, the biggest deficit outside of COVID in Canadian history, because of massive increases in spending. Will he cut back on the bureaucracy, the waste, and the tax havens to bring down his out-of-control deficit for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, if being just another Liberal means that we support single mothers with the cost of childcare, I'm just another Liberal. If being just another Liberal means that we help ensure kids get food to eat in schools, I'm just another Liberal. If making sure that skilled tradespeople get the training to get those prosperous jobs or investing in major projects is being a Liberal, I'm just another Liberal. I guess the question is, what do Conservatives really stand for if being Liberal is about helping Canadians?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, we now understand why that Liberal Prime Minister is fleeing from questions today, refusing to face accountability, because If doubling the deficit to the worst in Canadian history outside of COVID means being just another Liberal, he's just another Liberal. If giving Canadians the worst food price inflation in the G7 is just another Liberal, he's just another Liberal. If doubling housing costs so that an entire generation can't afford homes, he's just another Liberal. If driving 2.2 million people to a food bank is just another Liberal, he's just another Liberal. Isn't that why this just another Liberal won't stand in the House?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Where is he?
Okay, let's try this another way then, Mr. Speaker. If being conservative means voting against hungry kids, then I guess he's just another conservative. If being a member of the Conservative Party means voting against workers, trades, GST tax credits, tax on fuel, doubling down on inflation.
Can't hear. Sorry, can't hear. The Honourable Member could just stop for a moment. I swear, I can't hear. At some point, I can't hear. So the Honourable Member may continue. The Honourable Member may continue.
I know there's a lot of conservative voters out there, even in my own riding, Mr. Speaker, who come up to me every single day. And you know what they say to me? Keep going. Keep fighting for our workers. Keep fighting for our kids. Keep fighting for our families. That's why I'm proud to be just another Liberal.
Okay, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. I'll just let it calm down a bit.
From imaginary conversations with that minister to illusions from a prime minister who hides under his desk rather than being accountable in this House of Commons. You could cut through the Liberal arrogance with a knife, Mr. Speaker, but what you can't cut is the Liberal deficit. Amazingly, Justin Trudeau left behind a $40 billion deficit. We thought it couldn't get worse, but along came this Liberal Prime Minister and nearly doubled it to $80 billion. Just like he caused inflation when he printed money in Great Britain, he's causing inflation now. Will this Prime Minister, who's been wrong about every single economic issue, learn from his mistakes and reverse this deficit?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from this conservative. Let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker. Whilst the leader of the opposition is talking down the Canadian economy, Mr. Speaker, the International Monetary Fund said something just last week. Canada will have the second fastest growth in the G7. Canada has the strongest fiscal position in the G7. Canada's attracted a record of direct investment in this country, Mr. Speaker. This is being a Liberal in the 21st century. Building a strong Canada, attracting investment, sound fiscal policy, Mr. Speaker. We're proud to be Liberal.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will mark the first anniversary of his election on April 28th with an economic update. He had promised to quickly resolve the tariff crisis, but it's hitting harder than ever. The Honourable Member can continue. Thank you. The Prime Minister will mark the first anniversary of his election on April 28th with an economic update. But he had promised to quickly resolve the tariff crisis, but it's hitting harder than ever, with new tariffs on the total value of processed goods. The Bloc has therefore presented its proposals to better support the Quebec economy. First and foremost, we are calling for a wage subsidy, protect jobs in threatened businesses, particularly our small and medium-sized enterprises. Will this government adopt this essential proposal? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to see that the Bloc is proud to see that April 28th will be presenting an update which will allow our country to move forward. Yes, we have been here for companies, and we have a strategic fund to allow to our SMEs across the country, including in Quebec, to have support. Good news, Mr. Speaker. We are seeing foreign exports up, and the plan we have put forward is working, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to continue to build Canada strong together. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the tariff crisis highlights many flaws in the system. With Washington's new tariffs, it's clear that a comprehensive reform of employment insurance is needed to cover more workers. And with the soaring cost of living, it's clear that seniors aged 65 to 74 deserve an increase in their OAS. With Quebec sawmills closing one after another, it's clear that we must help the forestry sector in the face of unfair U.S. trade practices. On Tuesday, in its economic statement, will the government finally address these glaring issues? They need to solve them. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. She's right to mention that we are facing headwinds from the U.S. and with this U.S. president. And that's why on day one of this government, we've been here to support workers in the forestry sector, automotive, aluminum, and it doesn't stop. We're diversifying our markets with unprecedented deals. We've concluded 10 in the past year in trade and security. We are here to help our companies to find new outlets and to pivot. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, the economic update is also an important opportunity to remind the Liberals that the tariff crisis is not the only one we're facing right now. Yes, we have to invest in defence, but there's no reason to cut health care, as Ottawa plans to do starting in 2028. There's no reason to abandon our media or cut public transit. The Liberals are capable of tackling these various crises, provided they stop subsidizing big oil and stop kowtowing to U.S. tech giants. Will they stand up? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I hear my colleague's tone, and I think Quebecers are not very happy to see that he's criticizing what we're doing, because we are here for Quebecers, including it on the health front, and I work very well with my counterparts from Quebec to move the province forward. Thank you.
Member for Thornhill.
Next week, the Liberals are set to release their fiscal update, and the Prime Minister is copying Justin Trudeau's playbook as he burns through more taxpayer dollars, goes deeper into debt, and piles even more inflationary spending on every Canadian family. After more than a decade, none of these Liberals have realized that the more they spend, the worse affordability is for everyone. The Bank of Canada confirmed last week that rising interest rates are directly tied to excessive government spending. So if the Prime Minister won't bother with this place, will he at least call his friends at the Bank of Canada and get his spending under control?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'd ask that member to table immediately a list of the cuts she would like to make, and we will look into that.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The high-speed train, Alta, consultants, the gun buyback program. There's a number of them, and we can discuss those at length in the House. But the C.D. Howe Institute also said today that persistent Liberal deficits are, quote, undermining growth and living standards rather than supporting them. The thing that they very claim to do. Every dollar that the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. So when does all of that stop, and when is anybody over there held accountable for any of it?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we can believe the Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party, or we can believe the International Monetary Fund, who says that Canada has the best fiscal situation in the G7, has lots of fiscal capacity. And Mr. Speaker, you know what we're going to do? We're going to use that fiscal capacity to build Canada, to build it strong, to build with Canadian products, with Canadian men and women in the skilled trades. We're going to build projects from coast to coast to coast in this country, and we're going to build it over the objections of that member.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket Aurora.
The CFIB has sounded the alarm on the entrepreneurial drought in Canada for 6 consecutive quarters. More businesses have shut down than opened up, and the Montreal Economic Institute has said that the heartbeat of innovation, job creation, and economic growth is in sharp decline. Small businesses spend about 250 hours per year on red tape that could be eliminated, and it wouldn't even cost this government a single dollar. So will the minister admit that the Liberals' tax and spend approach has failed, and get out of the way so our businesses can thrive?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I share my colleagues' interest for our SMEs in Canada. 1 million companies for many millions of Canadians. I've just done a roundtable, and we are supporting SMEs to prepare them for exports. With a national defense strategy, we have small business support, and the CFIB has also thanked us for the suspension of the excise tax. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, entrepreneurs need a direct and clear answer. The CFIB estimates that the total regulatory cost of government is $52 billion. Businesses are burning through a collective 768 million hours annually on paperwork. And just this week, I met with businesses that have heard Liberal promises for almost a decade, and they are saying, will the Liberals just leave the starting line, just do something? So will they commit today to cutting their red tape, taxes, and government spending so businesses can actually thrive in our country?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we are clear. It's part of our support strategy for small business. The reduction of red tape is part of our approach for companies. I don't agree entirely with my colleague and her statement. I consult the reality of these businesses every week, and what we feel is that their transformation that we are conducting is allowing companies to look towards a bright future.
Member for Calgary Skyview.
The Prime Minister claims affordability has never been better, but Canadians know the truth. Food bank use has skyrocketed, rent has nearly doubled, and families are paying more for groceries, gas, and housing. After 10 years of Liberal inflation, everything costs us more. Yet this Prime Minister is adding billions in reckless spending, driving up debt and cost of living. Canadians are paying $3,000 each year just to cover up that debt. When will these Liberals get spending under control so Canadians can afford to live again? Thank you.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, that former failed leader and the missing in action current failed leader love to stand up here in this House and talk about the economy. They've been in this House a total of 44 years and have accomplished nothing for Canadians. In fact, their work experience outside of this House, you could fit it on a Post-it note, unless they embellish it again like the former leader did in 2019. On this side of the House, we have the Prime Minister, the plan. He's going to build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
When you lease a new vehicle, you get a new vehicle. But when these Liberals lease a spaceport, all they got for $200 million was a gravel parking lot. Now, I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that it's in a Liberal riding, or that the Justice Minister's former staffer was the lobbyist for the project, or that a former Liberal premier is on the company's advisory board, or clearly no Liberal insiders are getting rich at all. Canadians only have one question, Mr. Speaker. Why are so many Liberal insiders getting so rich off of taxpayers on this boondoggle of a lease?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, the Canadians have a question, all right. Why are the Conservatives against rearming, rebuilding, and reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces? We're proud to invest in space capabilities, Mr. Speaker, including a space launch infrastructure. It's important for Canada to assert its sovereignty in space-based communications. This is one of a continuing series of generational investments to ensure both Canada's security and our sovereignty. They don't seem to understand, Mr. Speaker. 20% of the Canadian economy depends on satellites every day.
Member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Get that minister some rocket fuel. These Liberals are expert at paying a lot for nothing. They've turned a gravel pit into a money pit. A former Liberal MP got $237 million for ventilators that went straight into the scrap heap. A Nova Scotia wind farm tightly connected to former Liberal MPs got a $206 million loan. Liberal insiders are making bank while too many Canadians are at the food bank. Mr. Speaker, when will a satellite be launched from our $200 million parking lot?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying earlier, before I was so rudely interrupted, 20% of the Canadian economy depends every day on satellites. Whether we're ordering food at our front door, whether we're trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange, whether we are actually now mapping our agricultural products in the production system, whether it's about actually deploying AI for firefighting purposes, we need satellite capabilities. We need secure telecommunications for our Arctic, for our security, for our sovereignty. Guess what, Mr. Speaker? Despite their objections, we're going to build it.
The honourable member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie wrote in La Presse that he fears his government is abandoning any goal of net zero. His Prime Minister is trying to push through another dirty oil pipeline in the West without meeting any of his own conditions. That means without raising industrial carbon pricing, without protecting water, and with weakened regulations on clean energy and methane to appease the oil and gas lobby. So no chance of meeting its own climate goals, Mr. Speaker. If they won't listen to the Bloc, will the Liberals listen to their own colleague? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the climate crisis is real. We know this, just like the global crisis. But the only way that we'll be able to succeed in facing it is working together. And for the issue of Alberta, last week I had an excellent discussion about this nature strategy with our colleagues over there. And this dialogue is open. We will be cooperating and learning. And I think it's by working together we'll be able to build a clean Canada. Thank you. The honourable member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, their nature strategy means more pipelines. And rumours are so serious that last Thursday, the member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie said that he had confidence in his government despite its climate stepbacks. But today he wrote, any further compromise not only undermines Canada's climate commitments, but also could cause irreversible damage to human health, clean air, drinking water, and the trust of Indigenous communities. Mr. Speaker, when will these Liberals stand up and stop their leader from destroying the environment? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we think it's possible to, yes, have economic development and respect our environmental commitments. And I'd like to thank the Secretary for her work and all members here who've implemented our nature strategy to protect 30% of our land. And in terms of this question, of course, any project will be done in cooperation with Indigenous peoples. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has appointed a personal friend as Canada's ambassador to Washington, Mark Wiseman. He's not a wise man. He's against supply management. He doesn't respect the French language. He's even the founder of the Initiative of the Century, which aims to bring millions of immigrants to Quebec to weaken the weighting of French. The Prime Minister named a friend to be an ambassador to the U.S. who wants to crush the French language and who's against supply management. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has said very clearly, the invitation should have been done in French. That's unacceptable. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, a friend is a friend, but the Liberals' inflationary deficits are costing Canadians dearly. This year, Canadians will pay $56.6 billion in interest to the Prime Minister's banker friends. $55.6 billion. That even exceeds the cost of Canada's health transfers. The Bank of Canada is clear. High interest rates are a direct result of excessive Liberal debt. During next week's budget update, will the Prime Minister put an end to inflationary deficits? Yes or no? The Honourable Government House Leader. As I've just indicated to this colleague, we are open to receive any cut suggestions for cuts from the opposition members, and we could study them. The Honourable Member. They've already taken many of our ideas, Mr. Speaker, but the Liberal Prime Minister has completely lost control of public finances. He's added $90 billion in new spending, and now we're paying $55.6 billion a year in interest on the debt. That's more than the GST brings in and more than health transfers. That money doesn't go either to patients or families, and every family is already paying $3,300 a year in interest alone. And next week, with the economic update, will he change course or condemn Canadians to pay even more for this Liberal spending? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we're somewhat perplexed. Are we talking about dental care that they call an inflationary spending, or is it the school food program or support to our workers and Quebec industries who are suffering from the U.S. headwinds with this trade war? What are these? What is this inflationary spending, and what cuts would they make? Could they table these cuts to detail them specifically to know what inflationary spending that they would like to debate here in this House?
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable-Haute-Binière. Mr. Speaker, $90 billion in new spending. The list would be too long to enumerate in 30 seconds. The Liberal Prime Minister may well say that everything is fine, like he did on the 25th of March, but the facts tell a different story. Federal spending is at its highest level since 1996, and two-thirds of new spending isn't even being used for investment, but simply to keep the machine running, the Liberal machine running. More debt, more inflation, and rising interest rates. Even the Bank of Canada says so. Every dollar wasted is a dollar less in Canadians' pockets. When will this Liberal government finally get its spending under control and give families a bit more breathing space, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Government House Leader. Once again, Mr. Speaker, perhaps a multiple choice question. For the Conservatives, is it $6 billion for the Canada childcare benefit? $400 million for feeding children at school? Is it an inflationary spending to have a grocery and essentials benefit? $3 billion for workers? OAS? $7.5 billion? Can they pick and choose which ones, for them, constitute inflationary spending? The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Katascomique, Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, it seems that many people don't realise that it's easy to announce programme after programme after programme, but in the end, it all ends up on the government's credit card with no real limit. Except that there is indeed a limit. A credit card bill left unpaid at the end of the month means interest charges. Ever-increasing spending, ever-growing deficits, and over $3,300 a year in interest for every single family. When will these Liberals finally decide to get their spending under control so that Canadians can make ends meet too? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate my colleague from the South Shore. The IMF has been clear. Canada has the best fiscal position in the G7. The questions from my colleagues are interesting. What is an inflationary spending for the Conservatives? Would it be to remove dental care for close to 40,000 people in his riding? That allows people to save $1,200, up to $1,200 a year? Would it be taking $97 million away from his riding through the childcare benefit? Is it by reducing the salary of the armed forces, as they did for many years? We'd like to know what it is.
Mr. Speaker, Build Canada Homes is Canada's affordable housing builder, and it's already delivering real results. It's working with partners to accelerate the construction of affordable homes across Canada, including right here in Ottawa. In just a few short months, we are already seeing progress, fast-tracking 8 shovel-ready projects in growing neighbourhoods. Can the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure please update this House on the momentum that the partnership between Build Canada Homes and the City of Ottawa is delivering?
Okay, Kamloops Nicola, Thompson Nicola. The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the member for his question. Exciting news this morning here in Ottawa. I was proud to be at a construction site with Prime Minister and the Mayor to announce those 8 shovel-ready projects. Over 1,100 homes, over 90% of those affordable homes by the Build Canada Homes standard. This is great news, Mr. Speaker. We are building at scale. We are prioritizing projects on the ground. We are building these deep partnerships, in this case with the City of Ottawa, and looking forward to continuing to build that good work. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, just 1 year ago, the Prime Minister was telling everybody who would listen that he'd get a trade deal with Americans by last July. He set the deadline. He made that commitment. Now the Prime Minister has surrendered as tariffs on steel double, tariffs on lumber triple, and the tariffs on manufacturers get bigger. The workers and job creators in my community now know that the Prime Minister's promises were more empty words from just another Liberal politician. He says our relationship with the U.S. is a weakness. But isn't the real weakness the Prime Minister's constant over-promising and under-delivering when it comes to U.S.-Canada trade?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, all these guys do every day in the middle of a trade war is talk down the economy, tear down the country, and we're doing the real work of investing in sectors and building it up. They just want to tear down. Let me ask what they would tear down. Here's a list of projects we've invested in. Northern Transformer, we invested. Conservative riding, they don't want it. Sensor Tech, we invest in Collingwood. They don't want it. Axe Building, in a conservative riding, they don't want it. Why don't they listen to their own businesses and their own riding and build Canada strong with us?
The Honourable Member for Niagara South.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is capitulating on U.S. tariffs. Tariffs on steel have doubled, lumber tariffs have tripled, and new barriers continue to hit our manufacturers. Nowhere is this failure felt more than in my Niagara region, where cross-border trade is the lifeblood of local jobs, supply chains, and our communities. While he blames tariffs on a shrinking economy, he fails to show up while Mexico actually has a seat at the table. The Prime Minister is dragging his feet. When will he finally stand up, fight for the 2.6 million Canadian jobs who depend on U.S. trade, and deliver tariff relief, which he promised?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, let me assure the member that we all stand at the ready. Mr. Speaker, Canada is at its strongest when governments, workers, businesses, and industry are all pulling in the same direction. By strengthening our engagement, we're ensuring Canada is well positioned. That's why, as the member is well aware, yesterday we announced the creation of the Advisory Committee on Canada-U.S. Economic Relations. This will serve as a forum for knowledge sharing, expertise, and feedback on all issues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, we have the only shrinking economy in the G7, and as the Prime Minister dithers, even Mexico is making progress on a deal. Why does he seem to keep wanting to drag this on? Why isn't he fighting for the 2.6 million Canadians whose jobs rely on trade with the U.S.? With millions of jobs at stake, when will the Prime Minister deliver results instead of the same speeches, excuses, and failures?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, once again, allow me to emphasize that we stand at the ready. For the past several months, what we have been doing is consulting with the provinces, consulting with the territories, consulting with businesses, consulting with labor leaders. So everyone is fully aware that we are doing as much as can be expected, and we will be acting very strongly, and he can rest assured that we will only agree to a very good deal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
7 months. It's been 7 months since there's been a formal meeting or negotiation to exchange offers to remove these American tariffs. What's worse, it is now being reported that this is actually a Liberal strategy, a strategy that has led to the loss of tens of thousands of Canadian jobs, the closure of the Brampton auto plant, the closure of steel mills, the closure of pulp and paper mills. This has had a devastating effect on Canadians, and now there are expanded tariffs on all manufactured goods, which will make it worse. What do these Liberals have to say to the Canadians who have lost their jobs as a result of their strategy of delay?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to focus on trade diversification. I'd like to share some facts for those that are watching at home. Non-U.S. trade is up by 17%, a record in 2025. Fact number 2, The Port of Vancouver moved 170 million metric tons of cargo, the highest in the port's history. That's more shipments to China, Japan, and South Korea. Let's come to the other side of the country. The Port of St. John's just reported a 30% jump, another historic record. This is how you build Canada strong and open opportunities for workers across the country.
Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
So the Liberal answer to the tens of thousands of Canadians who have lost their jobs about their strategy of delay is, don't worry about your EI, don't worry about your family, don't worry about how you're going to pay your mortgage, because we signed a free trade deal with Ecuador, which is a rounding error in Canada's GDP. Look, if these Liberals are serious, they will explain why they've decided their strategy is not to negotiate to try and get a deal on tariffs. Tariffs that affect 2.6 million Canadians' jobs whose jobs are tied to trade. Yeah. When will they get back to the negotiating table to protect those jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, what we've said is we won't do a bad deal. What we will do is control our own destiny. We will build. Let me give the member an example. $8 billion to the wing in Goose Bay. A new wind farm in New Brunswick, a new intertie in New Brunswick, a new port in Montreal, a new graphite mine in Quebec, a new nuclear reactor in Ontario. I could keep going, Mr. Speaker. That's how we build Canada strong.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are learning the Liberals spent $300 million on a software program called Prescribe IT. The Liberals promised Prescribe IT would replace fax machines for prescription drugs, but instead less than 5% of prescriptions went through the program. Now the Liberals are quietly shutting down Prescribe IT, hoping Canadians won't notice their money is gone. Given that taxpayers funded a program that they do not own for a service that never worked, my question is simple. Where did the $300 million go?
Honorable Ministre de la Santé.
Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like the colleague knows, that question was discussed at the Health Committee. The government made this decision to collaborate with provinces and territories a few years ago with Prescribe IT. Indeed, when we evaluated the program, the provinces weren't jumping in, so we stopped the funding.
For Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, $300 million on Prescribe IT is making the ArriveCan look like pocket change. The Liberals paid Canada Health Infoway to design the program, who then paid TELUS Health to develop the program, who then may have outsourced the work offshore. The CEO of Canada Health Infoway couldn't even tell a Health Committee how much the government paid him for this failure, claiming he didn't know his own salary. Wow. Canadians got nothing from Prescribe IT. So the $300 million question is, who got rich?
Here.
The Honourable Minister for Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like they know full well, the program was implemented with provinces and territories, so the money was spent. That said, health professionals didn't use the program enough to justify its continuation, and so we terminated it.
The honourable member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday it was revealed that Canadians paid over $275 million on health care for 130,000 rejected refugee claimants in the past 10 years. When bogus refugees and scammers are benefiting from a health care system they don't pay into and are receiving additional care that Canadians don't, like vision care, counselling, home care, and physiotherapy, something is wrong. When will the Prime Minister put Canadians first and stop scammers from taking advantage of our system?
Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The cost of health care for asylum claimant is tied to volumes. The good news is the asylum claims have gone down. If you compare the first 2 months of this year to 2024, it's gone down by 2/3. That's good news for Canada, and we will, with C-12, continue to reduce those claims. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, 6 million Canadians without access to a family doctor will not be lectured by these Liberals, while their own tax dollars are being abused and they can't get the proper care they need. The fact is, non-citizens whose asylum claims have been rejected have no reason to be in this country and should not benefit for better health care than Canadians. When will the Prime Minister admit he's lost control of immigration and stop letting scammers treat Canadians as a walk-in clinic?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That program that member speaks about represents 0.2% of the total health spending for Canada. I think they better get their facts straight and stop fear-mongering off of the backs of people that are vulnerable and that need to be protected. We will continue to do what is right for Canadians and what is right to protect Canadians and everyone in Canada. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Brampton South.
Speaker, our government is investing $79 million to the Strategic Response Fund to advance regenerative medicine, including innovative cures for diabetes. Can the Minister of Health tell us how this investment will drive innovation in diabetes research and improve outcomes for Canadians living with diabetes? Thank you.
L'Honorable Ministre de la Santé.
The Honourable Minister for Health.
Thank the member for her leadership on diabetes. We can't build Canada strong without healthy Canadians. Investments like these show our commitment to building a more resilient, modern, and sustainable healthcare system. Thanks to our investment, we are helping create approximately 400 jobs across the Vancouver region, which is great news for the economy and the people. Just as importantly, it shows that we want next-generation healthcare solutions to build here in Canada. Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, thanks to the RCMP and CBSA, a massive multi-million-dollar drug lab was shut down near Norwich. In Woodstock, drug dealers pushing fentanyl and cocaine were arrested but then released on bail. Liberal weak on crime, catch and release, and open border policies are destroying our communities. Under their watch, 50,000 Canadians have lost their lives due to drug overdoses. So when will the Liberals crack down on these criminals and protect our communities?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I have good news to share with my honourable colleague. He will be well aware of the fact that we are in the midst of moving forward with generational changes to Canada's criminal laws, including the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act, which will lead to stiffer penalties and harder conditions on bail for the very criminals that he raises in his question. The only question that I have, Mr. Speaker, if the Conservatives, after months of obstruction of the Justice Committee, will finally be collaborative now that they know there is a majority Liberal government who will implement the strongest criminal reforms we've seen in years, with or without their assistance.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, the police are doing their jobs, but it's this Liberal government that's failing Canadians. They promised 1,000 new RCMP officers, 1,000 new border guards, but they failed to deliver them. The AG says that in Canada, we are short 3,400 RCMP officers. Meanwhile, illegal guns, illegal drugs keep pouring across our borders and into our communities. So will the Liberals stop recycling their speeches and finally act to protect Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we've implemented the strongest tightening of the Criminal Code of Canada ever in the history of this Parliament. We're putting forward legislation that will provide law enforcement with the tools they need to catch drug traffickers, Mr. Speaker, but the Conservatives have delayed many of these tools. Lawful access, Mr. Speaker, should have been passed months ago, but finally now, Mr. Speaker, it's at the committee stage, and I hope the Conservatives listen to law enforcement and provide them with the help that they need.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, for years, residents and businesses in Saskatoon West warned the Liberals that the drug injection site was creating chaos and disorder in the community. The Liberals approved and funded the site even though it was within 200 meters of a school. Now, the whole operation has collapsed into bankruptcy and closure. That should be the end of this failed experiment. Saskatoon needs hope, recovery, treatment, and safety, not a new license for the same disaster under different management. Will the Minister of Health give the people of Saskatoon West a clear answer today and promise that she will not approve a new drug injection site in Saskatoon?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like my colleague knows full well, there's not one single solution. However, there are supervised injection sites. The federal government responds to the needs of provinces that operate these supervision sites. We don't pay for them directly. I'm working with Saskatchewan to see how we can organize ourselves on this file. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles.
Mr. Speaker, on March 12, in response to the government of Lebanon's urgent request for humanitarian support, the government of Canada announced more than $37.7 million in funding to provide critical assistance in Lebanon, including food, medical and health service, shelter, and clean water. 1 month on, could the Secretary of State for International Development update the House on the impact our humanitarian assistance is having on the ground? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Secretary of State for International
Mr.
Development.
Speaker, Canada's humanitarian assistance is making a real difference on the ground. Through trusted partners, we've helped provide nearly 5.7 million meals to families in need. We've supported emergency medical assistance to almost 16,000 patients and health services to 35,000 more. We're helping 40 primary care health facilities across Lebanon stay open, improving access to essential medical care for the most vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, these are just a few examples of the life-saving support that Canadians are helping provide. For families fleeing violence, facing displacement, hunger and loss, it makes a real difference, and it's something Canadians can be proud of.
The Honourable Member for Central Newfoundland.
This Liberal Prime Minister bragged about his deal with China to remove tariffs from Canadian seafoods. 49 seafood products were subjected to 25% Canadian tariffs. But this government secured exemption for only 2 species, and only until the end of this year. Harvesters and plant workers that rely on Chinese markets for turbot, sea cucumber, whelk, capelin, gooey duck, shrimp, and surf clams are reeling from these tariffs. Right. So when will these Liberals secure a real, lasting relief from Chinese tariffs and stop failing the Canadian seafood industry?
Here, here,
the Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, China is our second largest trading partner. In our trip in January, we unlocked billions of dollars of opportunities for our agriculture and seafood sector. That includes more canola to China, more beef to China, and more seafood to China. That's over 500,000 workers being supported by trade with China. We'll continue working with our Chinese counterpart to unlock more opportunities for more workers across the country.
Nice.
Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
At a time when gas prices are skyrocketing, the Liberals are quietly slashing $5 billion from promised transit funding to local governments, all part of the Prime Minister's cuts, funding that cities rely on to keep people moving and to fight climate change. That means fewer buses, delayed projects, and higher costs for commuters. Why is the government abandoning working people and municipalities when they need support the most? And will the Prime Minister reverse these reckless cuts in the spring economic update and reinstate the promised stable long-term transit funding? Yes or no?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the member for her question and her concerns about public transit. The good news is that we have expanded the opportunities for funding on public transit, not only from the Canada Public Transit Fund, which is the first permanent dedicated public transit fund in Canadian history, but also the Build Community Strong Fund, which is $51 billion of funding for infrastructure, communities across Canada, all of which is eligible for public transit funding. So we have grown the pot, much more larger for public transit. We intend to be investing aggressively, working with communities to deliver that public transit.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Last election, the Prime Minister promised to protect pharmacare and sign agreements with all provinces and territories as quickly as possible. Despite those clear commitments, his government has failed to sign a single agreement. And this week, PEI's health minister revealed the Liberals' plan to scrap pharmacare entirely when current deals expire. Will this government provide funding in the spring economic update to protect pharmacare and expand it to all Canadians as they promised, or are Liberals breaking their commitment to public pharmacare?
Hear, hear.
L'honorable ministre de la Santé.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to repeat something that I always have to repeat when we talk about pharmacare. The government is always committed to talking with provinces and territories to see how we can better support Canadians in healthcare based on their needs. With regards to Prince Edward Island and the article to which my colleague has made reference, these are programs that will end naturally in the next few years. So the government has cut nothing. Quite the contrary, I'm working with the province of Prince Edward Island to see how to better support them in healthcare.
And that brings an end to question period for this Thursday.
I
will give members a few minutes.
For Elgin, St. Thomas, London South, is it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During statements by members, I couldn't help but notice that the Minister of Finance took a photograph on his phone of the Secretary of State for Rural Development, which, as you and the Minister should know, is very much against the rules of this House, and I'm just hoping you could direct the deletion of that photo.
I didn't see that, but if that's the case, the minister would have to obviously delete the photo. I don't know if the minister has a reply to that point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I apologize and will delete it. Was one of my documents. Merci.
Okay, that went smoothly. Okay, we'll give everyone a few seconds to leave quietly.
We'll allow members who wish to leave the chamber to please do so quietly so that we can continue with our work. And because it's Thursday, obviously, we are waiting with great impatience for the question from the Opposition House Leader. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now it's time for everyone's favourite part of the parliamentary calendar, the Thursday question. I was hoping the Government House Leader could update the House as to the business for the remainder of this week and into next week, specifically on the heels of recent data showing that Canada, once again under this Liberal Prime Minister, has the highest food inflation in the entire G7. Will we expect any legislation to provide relief at the grocery store? We would be willing to fast-track legislation that would go the full way to lifting federal taxes off of gasoline and diesel, should the government want to introduce that legislation as well. One of the things that strengthens a dollar